Welcome everybody, I'm Laura Jones, and in this session we're going to be speaking with elite ultrarunner Courtney Dauwalter. What to say about Courtney? She's had a truly incredible list of achievements to her name, so I'm just going to simply mention a few of the standout triumphs. Courtney won the 2018 Western States, the 2018 Tahoe 200 and the 2019 UTMB race. And there was a small matter of winning the 2017 Moab 240, where she finished a mere 10 hours ahead of the gentleman in second place. Courtney travels the world with her husband and crew chief Kevin, who has undoubtedly been a key element in her success. Courtney runs for Salomon, was born in Minnesota and now lives in Golden, Colorado. Courtney, thank you so much for joining us.
Hey, thank you.
We know you're really busy, so we're really grateful to you to spare us a bit of time. So perhaps we could start by, before we get into the nitty-gritty, if you could tell us a little bit about your background and how your running journey started.
Yeah, for sure. I grew up in Minnesota. And in Minnesota, I did a lot of endurance sports. So I participated in cross-country running, cross-country skiing, and track, and loved them. I loved pushing myself, and that you had the control over how hard you went during your effort. And that took me, through college, kind of chasing that same endurance sport dream. And post-college, I got into marathon running. Did a few of those and loved them, was surprised that I survived them. And since then have kind of been dabbling in how far we can go. So looking for that limit.
And is that what really drives you with being an ultra runner? You know, just to see, you never know how far you can go, and unless you try. Is that what drives you on and makes you continue to keep pushing forward?
Yeah. I think it's so interesting. And I think our brains can help us overpower a lot of that physical pain. So tapping into that and messing around with different variables and different ways you can train. So it's a fun experiment to be running on myself.
Yeah, if a bit painful at times. I heard you, I was watching something on YouTube actually, and I heard you say something about, advancing in every area, in science and in medicine and all these sorts of things. So what you do is put one foot in front of the other and see how far you can go for. So that's what you're advancing in.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm really interested in right now. So it's cool to be looking for that.
Yeah, it's a good way of looking at it. What would you say has been one of your biggest challenges on your journey, and could you talk us through what it was and how it might have changed you and changed your mindset?
So when I first got into running ultras, I guess it was 2011 or 2012, I did a 50K and a 50-mile race, and knew that I loved the sport. And so I decided my next race would be a 100-mile race, and started the 100-mile race, got to mile 50, and it just physically hurt so bad that I went into this mental spiral of doom, and basically talked myself into the fact that I couldn't do it, and that I wasn't cut out for 100 miles, and that I should just throw in the towel and quit. So I did. I quit at about 60 miles in that first 100-mile attempt. And that was one of the toughest moments, but also one of the moments I'm most thankful for in this ultra running journey I've been on, because it taught me about that mental piece and how you have to tap into your brain when your body starts to hurt, because it's going to hurt no matter what. After running for 50 miles, you're going to feel some aches and pains, and that we have to believe in ourselves. And that's part of staying strong in our heads.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to ask you a little bit later on, actually, a bit more about the mental side of ultra running. But just thinking more about sort of, challenging times and things like that over the course of your ultra running, you can't run these great distances without making mistakes and errors of judgment. What would you say have been some of the most common or the biggest mistakes that you've made?
I think nutrition is a really easy one to make mistakes with. When I first got into it, I didn't know what to eat. I thought I shouldn't be eating, coming from just some road running stuff. You don't really need to consume calories. So that was a whole learning curve thing. And then I spent the first couple of years just basically mimicking whatever I saw other people do. So I'd come into an aid station and follow behind whoever was in front of me and eat whatever they ate and see how it held up, because I had no idea. So since then, yeah, there's been a lot of nutrition learning happening. And I think that one is really personal. So I think people just need to test it out and see what works for them and what stays and what doesn't, because all of our bodies are so different.
Yeah, and not to underestimate. Actually, I'll ask you that now. Actually, it's one of my favorite questions, is what do you find works for you now? Just because I just find it so interesting, the variety of different answers that we get to this question.
Yeah.
So, you know, nutritionally, what do you find works for you now? What do you like?
During a race, I keep it into now a really small family of foods that I have found work perfectly for me. So I use Tailwind Nutrition in my hydration bottles. I do Honey Stinger waffles and chews. And then if the race is 100 kilometers or longer, I'll add in mashed potatoes.
Yeah. Again, I think that's another thing I heard you say. I think it was on the Tahoe 200 video. I think you said something about got mashed potato, got Kleenex, chapstick, no sanity and no dignity. I loved that.
Yeah, those aren't required ever.
Yeah. Common mashed potato with chapstick. I just don't eat anything else. Yeah, I really like that. And who or what, you know, whether it be people or books or documentaries, who's had a really big influence or an impact on you and on your ultra running?
I think I've been really lucky growing up to have great influences that just kind of built this inner love for working hard and for racing hard and pushing myself, and also to find the joy in all of it. So I have my family, you know, to thank for that from growing up. And then I had really great coaches along the way that like simultaneously taught us to go into our pain cave, but also to have a boatload of fun with it, because this is a choice that we get to do every day.
Yeah, quite. And I think you're right. Sometimes the people that perhaps have the biggest influence on you might not even be runners, might they? It can be influence you in different ways.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, so you mentioned earlier that you're making the jump up to 100 miles was not an easy transition to make, and there were some issues along the way. Now that you've ran all these different varieties of races, do you have a favorite distance now?
Yeah. Right now I love anything over 100 miles. So I love the 100-mile distance, but I also really love, beyond that, the 200-mile distance or the last man standing format, I think are really interesting for what I'm looking to do right now in the sport, which is see how far we can go. Yeah.
But it's interesting that you think you kind of really come into your own, after 100 miles, really, that, you've still got, the tenacity and whatever it is to keep the grit, to keep going beyond that. And obviously, with your accolades, you've proved that you've really got what it takes to go these great long distances.
Thank you.
Okay, so what are you going to be focusing on in 2020?
In 2020, I'll be focusing on I guess there will be 3 main races that I'll focus on, and then there will be quite a few others that I'll do as build-ups for those races. So the main ones I'll focus on this year are the Hard Rock 100 in Colorado, UTMB, which is a roughly 100-mile race in France, and then Big Backyard Ultra, which is a last man standing format in Tennessee.
Yeah, which of course we know from last year that Maggie won, which was, brilliant. I remember,
it was so fun to track it.
Yeah. I sort of, long term, I know you've said that, you're really curious to see, sort of how far you can go, but do you have any kind of really overarching goals, things that you'd really like to achieve, in your career?
I think it's just to keep seeing what's possible and pivoting as, I encounter different problems or different injuries, to work through them as best I can and to have fun with it and enjoy the ride.
Yeah, because I know
there's like long trail sections that would be cool to do. So not necessarily always races, but just seeing seeing the world with my feet and out on those trails is a really awesome way to be living life right now. Yeah.
It's nice. Someone said to me, it's nice to be able to run to get places.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And I know we've been, obviously people that have already following you on social media and things like that might be aware that you were out with this hip problem, weren't you? That all seems to be resolved now.
Yeah, knock on wood. November and December, I basically took off from running and gave it the rest that it really needed after kind of forcing it through a few races. And now it's feeling really great, and my physical therapists are giving me the green light to just go ahead and get back to normal training. I'm very excited.
Is that the longest that you'd ever been out for?
Yeah. In years. I mean, maybe since 10 years. I don't know. It felt like a really long time.
Yeah, I can imagine. It's tough on the old brain as well, isn't it? Yeah.
But I think it's great, and it's important for us to recharge our systems fully every once in a while, and to tune in and listen to our bodies when we need that.
Yeah, absolutely. What do you do anything particular that you do to make sure you recover well after a race? What do you sort of do to make sure that you give your body the best chance of recovering well?
Eat a lot and rest a lot. Usually after races I'll take some days off of running, but I'll still go for walks. I think walking helps a ton in just moving the blood a little bit and helping your legs come back to life a little bit faster than normal. And then I really just I don't have a schedule for when I go back to running. I just tune in and see when it feels ready, both my body and my brain. Sometimes after some of those really long efforts, your brain can feel really tired too. So making sure to listen to all of those aspects.
Yeah, I kind of know what you mean. It's sort of well known that you are not that big on structuring your training. But roughly speaking, what's a typical day look like for you?
Roughly speaking, we can do that.
Eat, run, sleep.
Yeah, it definitely starts with coffee. So that's mandatory. And then now that I've been rehabbing my hip, I've got a new kind of hip activation routine that I do in the gym before I run. So I'll do 30 to 45 minutes in the gym, and then I'll get out for a couple hour run, eat, maybe some other types of work somewhere in there, and then usually a second run in the evening, just more casual with friends or with my husband or something like that.
Yeah. And where you are, presumably you've got access to plenty of hills.
Yeah, we're in Golden, Colorado. We're set right up against the foothills, like the miniature mountains, I guess. And so there's tons of trail access, tons of climbing, and also some decently flatter roads. Not very many flat things.
So do you normally, when you head out, are you more thinking about, obviously because it depends on the terrain you're running, do you concentrate more on just the time you're going to be out and on your feet as opposed to anything else?
Yeah, or not even that. I'll just kind of go based on feel. And obviously there's now some loops I know that take certain amounts of time, so I can go off of that. But I'll leave my door and either go left or right and kind of see where my feet take me from there if I don't have any set plans to meet people or anything like that.
Yeah. That's really interesting. So you don't sort of go out and think, right, today I'm going to do, these hill reps, or I'm going to do these, I don't know, efforts or whatever. You just...
Yeah. Sometimes I'll leave the door with that intention. Yeah. And if everything is green lighting for that, then I'll follow through on that. But I'm not attached to it. If I get to that hill and it's just not the day for it, then I'll change plans, call an audible.
I like that. I didn't feel like it today. It's not going to, yeah. So, you know, that would, I mean, I guess that's really a personality thing, because some people are so regimented about their training and, you know, absolutely logging everything to, you know, to keep a record of everything, so that then if a race goes well, they look back at what they did and they think, all right, well, this obviously worked for this 16 weeks or whatever, and they use that going forward. But I think that really comes down to personality, because some people just couldn't work like that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think there's a million different ways you could take on training for ultra running, and figuring out what fits with your lifestyle, with your personality, with what your goals are for your races. Is important in determining what kind of plan you need, or if you need a plan at all, or all of those factors. So for me, I know, like, I don't need a plan to hold me accountable. I know that I'm going to get out the door and work hard no matter what. And so having this freedom to listen to my body, I think makes it so that I do tune in and I give myself those easy days when I need them.
Yeah, because I think sometimes I think if you're not the kind of person that really responds well to that, it can add quite a lot of stress, actually. You know, if on your plan it said that you should be doing hill reps, and really your body was telling you that it didn't really have hill reps in it, but you went and bashed them out anyway,
right,
and then that you didn't hit the paces you were hoping for, so that makes you feel a bit rubbish.
Right.
And like, just like you say, if you just got to the hill and thought, no, you know what, I'm just going to run an hour easy instead, and I'm going to save the hill reps for another day, might have been better all round. So
yeah, different personalities, though. You're right.
Yeah,
for some people,
definitely. I think, and other people, the idea of not having a rigid plan would fill them with horror.
yeah.
You know, yeah. So it's like, yeah, it's interesting. Okay, so you know, a lot of people, you know, might not have been too aware of your journey and your kind of accolades until 2019 in UTMB. Obviously, you know, you came over to Europe and showed everyone how it's done. So can you talk us a little bit, you know, about how you prepared for that race, and then actually, you know, about race day itself and how the experience was for you?
Yeah. So I guess we should start then at Western States, which was at the end of June, which is where my hip injury happened. During Western States, around mile, I don't remember now, 70, 75, my hip went out and I ended up dropping out of the race at 80. And then I spent July not really able to run. I could get a couple miles in every other day, but otherwise it was really painful for my hip. So I spent a lot of time on the bike. And by August, I was finally able to put together like consecutive days of short to medium length runs. But it was a totally different training chunk of time than I had ever done leading up to a 100-mile race, especially a 100-mile mountain race. So when I lined up for UTMB, I wasn't sure how it was going to go or how prepared I was, but I knew that I wanted to put myself in it and just see how it shook out no matter what. So I didn't want to like stand at the start line already with excuses lined up. I wanted to pretend like, you know, training had been perfect leading up to it and that everything was good to go for this race. And it was really cool to take part in it. I mean, the start line atmosphere is insane. There's just thousands of people out there cheering and athletes running it. And they've got the music and the speakers cranked up. So it was really cool to be part of that and to experience it for the first time. Yeah. And then to get to travel around Mont Blanc was so beautiful. We had amazing weather and I had not been on any of the trails out there. So it was really special to take that all in and to take in the views.
Yeah. And you guys are real celebrities out there as well. No.
The trail running people?
Yeah, the elites, you know, when you're there and, you know.
It's pretty cool to be in that town during that week. There's so many things happening and so many people, you know, accomplishing these huge feats for themselves. So it's a cool place to be. The energy is electric.
Yeah. Okay. And how was the race itself? How, you know, obviously it went brilliantly because, you know, you did this phenomenal performance and won, was it 24? It was a brilliant time anyway. I can't.
Yeah, 24 and a half, maybe.
Something like that.
Yeah.
So how was it? You had a bit of, I know you had a bit of stomach difficulty towards the end for that last climb. Everyone's going to always remember that.
Well, because you had to watch it.
Yeah. Right, she's going to win. Oh dear.
Yeah. Thanks for capturing that on film.
Yeah, you'll forever be indebted to them for that.
That's good. It's true ultra running footage then.
Yeah, exactly.
We don't want to sugarcoat it.
Yeah,
it was an awesome day, and it was also a really tough day. I got to Champs-Lac was where it all kind of blew up, which was where my stomach turned and basically where my legs were toast. I had nothing left in them, and that's around mile 70. So there were still 30 miles, 50K left in the race, and quite a few big climbs left to go. So it was a struggle for sure. And at some points I wasn't sure if I was still moving forward at all, but just trying to put one foot in front of the other and keep moving towards Chamonix to get to that finish line was the only thing I was thinking about.
Yeah, amazing. It's amazing. There's another quote I like, you know, go all in, you might surprise yourself. I like that. Yeah. I mean, you definitely did that day. So now I'd like to talk to you a little bit more about the mental side of ultra running. We touched briefly on it before, but it's something that, you know, obviously can't underestimate it. What strategies work for you to get you through, you know, a race and those dark spells?
I think I've been trying some different things in my experiment of one, but so some basic strategies are distraction, using food or music or, you know, telling yourself stories or jokes or whatever can be a great way to distract yourself from the physical pain and to try and like just stay in your head a little bit more. Another strategy I've tried is to entirely ignore the pain, pretend it's not there and it doesn't exist, as a way to like stay mentally strong. And lately the one I've been trying out is to like fully immerse myself in the pain and accept that I'm totally miserable, and to try and kind of not enjoy it, but realize how special it is to be in that place. Because you don't get to just like snap your fingers and get into that state of being, you know, like to be hurting that badly physically means that you're doing something pretty cool maybe, and maybe pushing your own limits a little bit, and to enjoy that trip to the pain cave and make the most of it while you're there has been my latest strategy. I don't know. I like to kind of dabble around with it, because with our brains we can decide exactly how we want to react to it. You know, we can say, all right, today I'm going to ignore it, or today I'm going to fully pay attention to it and enjoy that I hurt this bad. And I think that's pretty cool about the human body and brain connection. Yeah.
And I guess, you know, although it does hurt, we're lucky that we're able to, that our bodies work well enough to let us do that. And then to know that, you know, when we stop and we rest, it will go away. And, you know, that's
exactly.
I was in the mountains on Saturday, and it was so cold, and so and then like after about 10 hours I was really miserable, but I was thinking to myself, you know what, when I get home and get warm and dry, I will fully appreciate being warm and dry.
yeah Because for the most part we're always putting ourselves in these situations by choice.
Exactly.
So there always will be an end to that misery.
And then you really appreciate the, you know, the little things like not being on the side of a mountain.
A hot shower.
Okay, so you know, when you bonk, what works? How do you get through it? You know, what do you do to
I think kind of the same strategies I just listed. Yeah, would be the same things. Because when I think of bonking, I basically think of you're physically hurting so badly and you feel like you can't go anymore. And that's when you tap into the mental side and discover another gear.
Yeah. Okay. So, thinking about, obviously you had that incredible victory in 2017 at the Moab 240 mile, where you left everybody else for dust. What sort of tips have you got? What do you think helps you to succeed in these super long distances? Would you have any tips for people that were thinking about, you know, perhaps making a step up from the 100 miler and going for, you know, these really long distances? Would you have any, you know, what do you think it takes and what helps?
Yeah, well, first I say go for it for sure. It's so cool.
Leave your sanity. You can't take any sanity with you.
Don't think anymore, just sign up. I think for those 200-mile plus races, it's all the same stuff as 100 miles. You're still going to want to stay on top of your nutrition. You want to, you know, make some good gear choices and just be prepared for all the types of elements. And then I think the biggest part when it's such a long race is to not get overwhelmed by thinking of the whole thing. So 200 or 240 miles can feel like really scary when you're standing on the start line, or when you're at mile 5, or, you know, when you're at mile 50 and you're not even halfway. So breaking it down into those tiny doable sections and just staying in that moment in that section while it happens. Yeah.
So you sort of like thinking about the next aid station or whatever, and, you know, I'm just going to run this 20 miles or whatever, and then.
Yeah. I found that at the start I could think of that aid station to aid station, which is roughly 20 miles usually. And then towards the end, it became even smaller, you know, the very, very tangible goal of running to the next tree or the next turn in the trail or taking the next step, you know, whatever chunk you have to break it down to make it something that feels like you can keep doing it.
Yeah. It's interesting. I think, I can't remember who said it now, but there's something like however far you believe you can go will be as far as you go. And I think, you know, we've just talked about the step from 100 mile up to, you know, 200 or whatever. But I think for me, because I've come to running quite late in life, and I remember the first time I ran 5K without stopping, at that point, the thought of ever running a 10K was like, there's no way I could ever do that, you know, because no, I'd have to do that all over again, you know, and I was, you know, and then the same, you know, making the step from 10K up to a half marathon distance, the thought of it at the time, you think, oh, I'm exhausted at the end of a 10K. There's no way I could do it again. But if you set off because you're going to run a, you know, I don't know, a half marathon or whatever, then your brain knows, doesn't it? And you wouldn't stand on the start line of a 200 miler with the same thoughts in your brain that you would of a 100 miler. So your brain would never think that 100 miles was the finish point, if you know what I mean.
Right. Yeah, for sure. And if anyone is, you know, building up from running 1 mile to wanting to run 2 miles, it's the same premise, you know, you just break it down into a manageable chunk and you do what you can to keep moving forward to get to that 2 mile mark.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. So, you know, obviously a huge part of your success is the team that are supporting you, and we know that Kevin is at the helm of that. What sort of things do Kevin and the rest of the crew do to support you, and what you know, what tips would you give for people that, you know, to make sure their crew are going to give them the best support on the race day?
Oh man, it's so fun sharing these races with a crew, and sometimes pacers are allowed, so they get to run sections with you. And I love all of that. Like, obviously for the logistics for me coming into an aid station and getting the nutrition traded out that I need or whatever is awesome. But also just, it makes it this team sport and team undertaking. That's really cool to share. And then at the finish line to talk about and, you know, to have as a memory together. So if you can get a crew involved, it's really cool, but it is definitely not required. It's possible to do it with just the aid stations. I think for crew people to be successful, they should, you know, feel like they're pretty self-reliant and can like figure out all the race logistics on their own. Sorry.
All right.
And then when you roll into an aid station, to kind of know and be able to predict what sorts of things you might need, or to follow a list if you make them one, of what you want at those aid stations. I think they should generally not let you dilly-dally, so keep you moving and not let you sit down for too long, if at all.
Yeah.
And to help you problem solve if you need it, but not to like keep asking if what things are wrong, you know. Like I think like I tell Kevin, who's my husband and crew chief that you're alluding to, I tell him to just not ask me how I am, because he can probably imagine how I'm feeling at mile 80 of a 100-mile race, and that if I'm not saying anything, to just, you know, carry forward business as normal, and we'll get to that finish line, and then I'll tell you how many things are hurting. Yeah. Like me talking about it to you during the race is not solving anything.
No.
So you don't need to ask.
I can imagine it's like a double-edged sword as well, because it's really great that obviously he's your husband, so he knows you really well, so he probably doesn't need to ask you a lot of things, he can just tell. But then also there's the other edge of that sword, where if you want to sit down and he's saying, no, you're not sitting down, Courtney, I can imagine with my husband, I'd be like, actually, I am going to sit down.
Luckily we haven't run into too many situations like that where we like clash during a race. I feel really lucky that he loves crewing and he loves coming to these events, and I love racing, and so it's a fun team to have.
That's amazing. And also, you know, with the commitment that it takes to your training and everything like that, it's so lovely that he understands and, you know, is supporting and is kind of part of it as well, because it's such a massive undertaking, isn't it? I'm very lucky. And you mentioned obviously that sometimes he's able to pace you, so from a runner's perspective, what tips would you give someone who's interested in pacing?
It's an awesome experience, so to do it if you get that chance, and then to kind of let the runner take the reins and determine, you know, if you're talking or if it's a quiet, you know, vision quest. Are you pacing in front of them, or are you staying behind them? Do they need some tough love, or do they need, you know, just really nice, sweet rainbows and butterflies, you know, niceties? So it really is case by case and person by person on how it's going to go, but sharing those miles and helping that runner, you know, work towards that finish line is just a really cool memory to build together. And I recommend it if anyone ever gets the chance. And
I can imagine for you, it really breaks up your race as well, having some, you know.
Yeah, for sure. And just being able to share then, you know, parts of the Western States course or parts of the Tahoe 200 course for a person who maybe won't ever decide they want to run 200 miles, they still get to experience what 200 miles is like, in a lot of the ways that a runner does. And
I remember, I mean, nothing like what you do, but when I was doing my marathon training, when it came to my 20-mile runs, I had a couple of friends that would never want to run 20 miles, but they joined me at different bits, just like 3 or 4. And for me, I was thinking, it's nearly 9:30. Joe's going to be here in a minute. So I was only running to when I was going to meet her. And then I knew that I'd have that sort of 30 minutes where I'd have a bit of company. And it just was a bit of a break, really, almost, in the just me on my own. You know, it was nice.
And that broke it down for you into those tangible pieces that you knew you could do that next section and then get to your friend.
Exactly. It's just a way of, like you say, just breaking it up, making it, you know, less of a daunting prospect. Okay, could you give us a little bit of a rundown of the gear that you like, what you rely on, you know, the kind of kit that you wouldn't be without?
So I use Salomon gear, and that involves clothes, hydration vest, and shoes. I've been loving their S-Lab Ultra shoes and their Sense Ride. And then their gear, I usually just wear the men's gear because I prefer the fit of men's clothing, but they've got great options for all types of weather. For socks, I wear Injinji, which are toe socks. And inside of that, I'll slather my feet in squirrel's nut butter, which has been a game changer for my feet. A couple of years ago, I didn't have this combination, and I would, inevitably be limping through the last bits of races or training because my toes would be covered in blisters. So this has been a really cool discovery for me. And if you struggle with blisters on your toes, I recommend you try it.
Yeah, well, that's actually, I've got my first 100K in July, and the thing that I'm most scared about is my feet.
Yeah. Well, test out some, like squirrel's nut butter is just a really easy stick or jar that you can use that you can spread all over your toes. And it's helped me a ton. Yeah. So check that out. Yeah,
definitely. And you're not the first person that's mentioned the toe socks to me either. So
yeah. Game changer for me. So give those a try as well.
Yeah. And now then, and we mentioned before about the time that you were off, was the longest you'd ever been kind of out. But do you plan to have an off season normally?
Normally I treat it more as kind of a rolling thing throughout the year. So maybe I'll build up towards a big race early in the year and then take kind of a mini off season or rest period after that and then build back up. This past year I took a definite off season of November and December. But in normal years I don't necessarily always choose the winter for it or always choose a certain set of weeks for it.
Yeah.
Just based on the season and what my body needs.
Yeah. Okay. And you mentioned that because you've been rehabbing this hip, you've been really conscious to do your kind of exercise in the gym. Is sort of resistance and strength training something that you've always kind of included within your training, or is it because you've learned that you need to, because the hard way?
Yeah, I learned the hard way this past year that that stuff is really helpful and keeps your body happy and works some of those really small like balancing muscles that you don't necessarily think of right away. So the hip strengthening routine and just kind of more core work in general and strength training in general has been helping me a ton lately. So I'm thankful for the injury and that it taught me this new tool, I guess, of how to treat my body better as I increase mileage.
Yeah, it's interesting that question that I ask about people, mistakes that they've made. A lot of particularly the men, say it was like not appreciating that once they got into their 30s, they couldn't view their body quite the same way as they did in their 20s and expect it just to keep being okay.
Those dang 30s.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I'm going to have to do my strength training now. Okay, so the next question I was going to ask, which I kind of was, is there a non-obvious item that you wouldn't be without in a race? I don't know whether, are you going to say it's chapstick now? Because I mentioned that earlier.
Yeah, well, I was going to say chapstick and an extra hair tie for sure.
Yeah.
I do not want to be caught with my hair tie breaking at the start line, nor do I want to be caught without chapstick out there. So those ones are for sure with me every single race. I also have it's not a gear thing, but this little like charm that my mom gave me after my first 100-mile race that I completed. And I now carry that with me every race that I do. So she's with
nice.
me.
Yeah, that's not, but yeah, like a little lucky charm.
Yeah, kind of.
That's nice. Yeah, a lot of people say that they can do without a buff. That's like the one thing, because it can be like, sweat ripe, keep your hair off your face. It's like someone said to me, I think it's the most underrated piece of kit. Yeah,
those are really useful and come in handy quite often. Yeah,
and it's interesting that you said chapstick, because I remember when I was like getting ready to have my first baby and, you know, packing the bag for the hospital, and everyone was like, make sure we've got Chapstick. That'd be the one thing you don't want to be without. So
Yeah, yeah.
it's the same, you know, it's the same sort of ordeal. 100-mile race, childbirth. Don't forget your Chapstick.
Well, and I have a thing where I think I've lost probably 45 chapsticks. Like per year I lose every chapstick I have, I think. So every time I'm at the store, I'm just picking up a few more.
Yeah, it's like biros. Where do they go?
Yeah, where do they go?
I don't know. Okay, so I've got just a couple of questions now to ask to kind of wrap it up. First of all, what, in your opinion, are 3 characteristics that are needed to be successful in ultra running?
I think you have to like it.
Mm-hmm.
I think you can't make excuses. And I think being able to problem solve or ready to learn how to problem solve is important.
Yeah, that's a good answer. And if you could give your younger self a piece of advice concerning running, not life advice, about running, what would you say?
Oh man, how young are we talking?
Yeah, well, that's true. Yeah. You decide.
Yeah, I think probably just believing in yourself is huge, because if you believe in yourself, then you're going to put in, you know, the work, and you're going to be signing up for things and believing that you can finish them. So I think you've got to believe that you can do it, and that you're going to do it.
Yeah. Yeah, because it must have been a point in your career, in your running, where you suddenly realized that this could be a career, you know. You know.
Yeah, it's been really fun, and I'm lucky that I have a situation where I got to kind of step out of my normal day job to explore if it was possible or not.
Well, not just lucky. I think, yeah, well, you are lucky, but also, you know, pretty gifted.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, and if there's anybody watching who is just thinking about starting out ultra running, what would be your main advice to them?
Go for it. Why not? I think, building up in small increments. So not going crazy the first weekend you decided you wanted to be an ultra runner, but taking it step by step, really a gradual increase, but being consistent with it. So you've got to get out the door, and by getting out the door, even if it's a short run every single day, you're just building that physical strength, but you're also building mental strength and learning the habit of not making an excuse on why you can't get out the door.
I think it's quite, for me, I think, because I've you know, obviously this year, it's going to be the first year I'm going to, you know, run anything over marathon distance. I've quite enjoyed the fact that for the time being, I'm just concentrating on how long I'm going to be out there for, and not thinking about pace, and it's been quite nice, actually.
Yeah. Every run's an adventure then.
Yeah, it's nice. Well, the next question, you've kind of already answered this earlier, but I was going to say, if anyone who's watching, who's already kind of quite an established ultra runner, but they really want to, you know, take it to the next level, so they want to become more competitive, or you know, what advice would you give them?
Oh man, I think that's so tricky to umbrella answer, because depending on what they've been doing or what their holdup is on, you know, why they're not getting faster or not getting the results they want, I think it could be a gamut of things. But probably they should sign up for something and then just stand at that start line believing they can compete, and then see where that lands them, and see what their obstacles are during that race that made it so they ended up not, you know, finishing where they wanted to. And that would be a good way to start assessing, you know, what their hang-ups are if they're not sure. Yeah.
Do you think that a coach is, you know, kind of, you know, do you think it's essential to have a coach if you really want to, you know, see improvements? If you've, you know, if you kind of reached a level and you're not seeing the improvements, do you think that is the time that you need to think about hiring a coach?
I think it's one tool that's out there that works great. You know, there's some really great coaches out there who are helping athletes achieve huge things across the you know, from the front to the back of the pack. So for sure, if you're interested, you should kind of shop around and see what different coaches offer. I don't think it's necessary to have a coach, but I do think that if you don't have a coach and you have no experience with running training, that maybe check out some different literature online or get some books that can help you kind of shape what that plan would look like, so that you're not just running the same pace every day and the same loop every day. So getting a little of that variety in there.
Yeah. Well, that's really great. Thank you very much. I think that just about brings us to the end. Thanks ever so much, Courtney, for joining us today. It was really interesting to talk to you.
Well, thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. We're, you know, really glad. We know you're really busy. So what we'll do is we'll put the link. So if anybody isn't following Courtney, if you're not following Courtney, then I don't know, you know, where have you been? But we will put the links so that you can follow us. And thank you, everybody, very much for joining us.
Yeah, thanks, guys.